My parents sold my grandma's antique piano, the one she left only to me, and used the $95,000 to buy their dream house. The day sunlight spilled through the living room windows and landed on the empty space where my grandmother's piano once stood. Something inside me cracked so deeply it felt permanent. That antique piano had been more than wood and ivory keys, it had been her heartbeat, her memory, and her final promise to me. And now, in the bright, careless glow of an ordinary afternoon, it was gone, sold without a word, its value converted into walls and tiles I had never asked for. In that moment, I understood that betrayal doesn't always come in the dark, sometimes it happens in broad daylight, smiling and justified. My name is Elara Whitmore, and that piano was the last piece of my grandmother Maeve. She raised me in a small sunlit house that always smelled of old books and lemon polish, where mornings were filled with music instead of alarms. Maeve taught me that music wasn't about perfection, but about truth, about letting your hands tell stories your mouth never could. When she passed, she left the piano to me in writing, clear and unquestionable. She said it was my anchor, my reminder of who I was when the world tried to rush me into someone else. I believed that promise would be protected, because it was family, because it was sacred. But my parents saw something else. They saw money. $95,000, to be exact. Enough for a down payment on a modern house in a gated community, enough to upgrade their lives while convincing themselves they were doing it for all of us. They didn't ask me. They didn't warn me. They waited until I was away at a music workshop, chasing the very dream my grandmother had nurtured, and when I returned, the piano was already gone. The house was quiet in a way it had never been before, stripped of its soul. The struggle that followed wasn't loud or explosive. It was silent, heavy, and constant. I tried to practice on borrowed keyboards, on chipped pianos in community centers, but nothing felt right. Without that piano, I felt untethered, like my hands had forgotten their own language. My parents told me I was being dramatic, that memories lived in the heart, not in objects. But they didn't understand that some objects carry entire lifetimes inside them, and when you lose them, you grieve twice. Daytime stretched on endlessly in those weeks, filled with forced smiles and polite conversations, while inside I was unraveling. The new house they bought was bright and spacious, full of sunlight and empty echoes. Every room felt like it belonged to strangers. I felt like a guest in my own life, watching other people benefit from something that was never theirs to give away. The injustice sat in my chest, heavy and unresolved, but I didn't know how to fight it without losing my family completely. If this story is already touching something inside you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, because stories like this remind us we're not alone in our pain. Everything began to change on a quiet afternoon when I found an old notebook Maeve had hidden inside a box of sheet music she'd also left me. The pages were filled with her handwriting, uneven but determined, telling stories about her youth, her sacrifices, and why she wanted that piano to be mine. She wrote that she had once given up her own dreams so others could live comfortably, and she never wanted that cycle to continue with me. Reading those words in the daylight, with the sun warming my hands, gave me something I had lost: clarity. I realized then that honoring her legacy didn't only mean owning the piano. It meant standing up for myself, even when it hurt. I confronted my parents, not with anger, but with the truth of what they had taken. I showed them the notebook. I showed them that this wasn't about money or property, but about respect, about promises made to someone who could no longer defend herself. For the first time, I saw hesitation in their eyes, followed by something closer to shame. They couldn't undo the sale. The piano was already in a private collection overseas. But something shifted. They offered to support my music education fully, not as compensation, but as acknowledgement. It wasn't perfect. It didn't bring back the piano. But it was a start. I took that support and poured it into my craft, practicing during the day when sunlight filled my room, imagining Maeve listening, nodding along to every imperfect note. Years later, I performed my first public concert in a bright, open hall. The piano wasn't hers, but my hands were steady, my heart full. As the music filled the space, I felt her with me, not in the instrument, but in the courage it took to keep going. I understood then that while some losses can never be replaced, they can be transformed into strength. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that their voice matters, even when it's ignored. In the end, my parents' choice taught me something painful but powerful: family can fail you, but you can still rise without becoming bitter. The piano was gone, but the music remained, carried forward in every note I chose to play. And under the steady glow of daytime skies, I finally learned that honoring love sometimes means refusing to let it be sold.